He walked onto the stage in a Dracula cape, stared down his opponents like a supervillain, and could hit doubles like a machine. Ted Hankey was a two-time world champion, and when he was winning, fans cheered like mad. But the moment the game didn't go his way, he flipped. This is the story of the darts pro who was loved for winning and hated for absolutely everything else. From brilliant finishes to public meltdowns, and eventually a scandal that destroyed what was left of his legacy, Ted Hankey wasn't just unpredictable. He was the villain darts didn't ask for and couldn't ignore. Before the outbursts, before the scandals, and long before the headlines, there was just a man and his dartboard. In 2000, Ted Hankey wasn't some cartoon villain. He was a cold, calculated destroyer on the oche, and at the BDO World Championship, he proved it. He tore through the field with ruthless precision, averaging over 97 in the final and hitting 22 maximums, a record at the time. He was dominating. With smooth mechanics and a deceptively calm throwing style, Hankey looked like he was built for darts greatness. And with that first world title, he'd done what every darts player dreams of, etched his name into history.
There's one. There's two, the bullseye for the title. Yes! What a shot to win a world championship, the Embassy World Championship. 6-0 on a 170-ounce shot. Unbelievable.
But that win didn't just put a trophy in his hands, it gave him a spotlight. And Ted, he didn't exactly shrink from attention. When Ted Hankey returned to defend his title, he brought drama. Draped in a black cape, walking to the oche like a villain, entering a wrestling ring, Hankey embraced his nickname, the Count. His slow, deliberate entrance was set to haunting music. He'd stare down his opponents, sometimes the fans, sometimes the camera, and at first, people loved it. He was different, a throwback to the days of showmen and anti-heroes, someone who made darts feel like theatre. But the longer he stayed in the spotlight, the more that act started to feel a little too real. Ted didn't just wear the cape, he acted like he was better than everyone else. He'd complain about crowd noise, argue with officials, glare at anyone who dared to move during his throw. It became clear that this wasn't just a character, this was who he really was. And while the game respected his skill, fans began to wonder, was Ted Hankey playing a role, or was he just a nightmare to be around? As the years went on, the drama stopped being entertaining and started becoming exhausting. Ted Hankey was volatile. On-stage tantrums became routine. If the crowd were too loud, he'd stop mid-throw and let them know.
Noise from the crowd. Thank you. Asks for the Master of Ceremonies to keep the noise down. The crowd react. And he gets the double he wants and turns around and shouts angrily to the crowd. Lip readers, you can work out what that's all about. He's saying, I don't need that, shut up, and he said a bit more as well.
If a referee made a call he didn't like, Ted would argue, loudly. In one match, he famously threatened to walk off stage entirely, blaming the venue, the lighting, the atmosphere, anything except his own performance. And when things really went south, he would smash his darts, slam the table, and curse at officials and fans alike. His opponents tried to stay professional, but many couldn't hide their frustration. For a while, people still showed up, not to support him, but to see what meltdown might happen next. And even when he won, he made it hard to celebrate. The talent was still there, but the respect, that had long since left the building. After winning his second world title in 2009, Ted Hankey should have been on top of the world. But instead of building momentum, his form began to crumble. The game was evolving. Younger players were sharper, fitter, and adapting to the growing professionalism of darts. Hankey, meanwhile, stayed stuck in his old ways. He continued to blame distractions, tournament organizers, and even the crowds, but the truth was clear, he was no longer winning. In 2012, he made the switch from the BDO to the PDC, a move many thought would revive his career. Instead, it marked the beginning of the end. During that year's Grand Slam of darts, he put in one of the worst performances of his career, averaging just over 60. Fans were shocked. Shortly after, Hankey revealed he had suffered a mild stroke prior to the event. The stroke had affected his eyesight and concentration. He also confirmed he had been diagnosed with diabetes. Physically, he wasn't the same, and mentally, the frustration kept building. He returned to smaller events, but the spark was gone. The tantrums remained, but the talent had faded, and by this point, most fans had already stopped cheering. For years, Ted Hankey walked the edge, but in 2022, that all changed. Not because of something he said on stage or did in a match, but because of something he was caught doing off it.
World darts champion Ted Hankey has been jailed for 2 years for a sexual assault caught on camera. Jailing him, Judge Stephen Everett said Hankey would have, quote, denied it to the bitter end if the attack had not been caught on film.
Hankey was arrested and charged with the sexual assault of a teenage girl. The evidence was captured on CCTV. There was no speculation, no grey area. He pleaded guilty in court. The judge called it a disgraceful incident. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison, placed on the sex offenders register, and banned from contacting the victim. It wasn't just a scandal, it was the end. Sponsors vanished, the darts world went quiet, and the fans who once debated whether Ted was misunderstood had nothing left to say. His legacy didn't just fade, it collapsed. Ted Hankey was a world champion, twice. He had the throw, the stage presence, and for a brief moment in time, he had the spotlight. But greatness in darts isn't just measured by trophies, it's measured by how you're remembered, and in Hankey's case, the memory is complicated. Some will say he was misunderstood. Others will say he got exactly what he deserved. The truth? He was loved for winning. The moment he stopped, everything else caught up with him. And when his darkest moment came to light, there was no comeback, no redemption arc, just silence. Ted Hankey didn't lose darts. Darts let go of him. But while Hankey's career ended in disgrace, plenty of darts pros went on to win big and live even bigger. So how exactly do professional darts players spend their money? From flashy cars to quiet country homes, click here to find out what happens after the trophies are lifted.